Hey everyone, it's Boomer here. I just want to do a quick video on how I thought through and did the function to satisfy the common JavaScript interview question of creating a function that checks if a string is a palindrome. So, a couple caveats. I'm on a Discord and we were talking about this, and so in this specific case, we just had a couple caveats to kind of make it more fun. You're not allowed to use any built-in JS methods, and you need to use a for loop. This part right here may not have been factual in the interview, but that's what we were talking about in the Discord, so that's why I'm going to do it that way. Now, the first thing is, if you don't know what a palindrome is, it's just a word that is the same forwards and backwards. So, race car this way is R-A-C-E-C-A-R, and race car this way is R-A-C-E-C-A-R. So, that means it's a palindrome. So the first thing, and a really important part that I didn't think I was going to talk about in this, but it's really important, is clarifying questions. Very rarely will you get all the information you need to satisfy a task at work. I have been employed as a developer for just over 2 years now, and I'm always asking questions. This is really important during an interview because that shows that you're thinking the process through. So I don't have any numbers to support this, but let's say I went to an interview and got asked this question, and I just went up and I just wrote the function. Even if the function did what it was supposed to, if somebody else comes in and asks a bunch of questions, and even if they don't get it right, they may consider him a better fit because, or him or her, sorry. They thought it through. They thought through the edge cases. So the first thing I think of here is race car. All right, is what about this? Is this a palindrome? Because in JavaScript, small r and big R are not the same, right? So that's gonna change how we write this function. Also, what about and in like just the regular world, non-programming, people do consider this a palindrome. Same with this. What about this space? This space adds a whole new level of complexity to this JavaScript function that we have to build. But in just like regular world, again, this is considered a palindrome. Now, I'll show, it's actually pretty easy to solve for those when you're allowed to use some built-in JS methods, but since that's something we can't do, I'm going to assume that, excuse me, I'm going to assume that we are going to get everything in the same case. So all uppercase or all lowercase. I'm just going to make that assumption. I may be wrong, but that's just the assumption I'm going to make. So the way you could ask that too in an interview question is, is the string going to be all the same case? Is the string going to have any spaces? Like what you can ask, what type of data will I be getting? A lot of times, like with arrays and whatnot. But so that's kind of that. So the first thing I like to do is I like to do pseudocode. So step number 1, create a function that takes in a param. Cool. And if you don't know what pseudocode is just writing out step by step what you need to do to satisfy this criteria, right? So the first one's create a function, and we'll do that. Then, all right, how are we going to check if it's a palindrome or not? Well, we just need to read it front ways and back ways, right? So we have to use a for loop. With a for loop, you traditionally loop over an entire thing, right? So we'll do let I equals 0. We would do I string.length. So you can only use this for loop when you want to loop over every single item of whatever's being passed in or whatever value you have there. We don't necessarily want to do that. We really only want to loop over halfway, right? Because what we want to do is we want to check first versus last, second versus second last, third versus third last, and then this is kind of a little unique case too. If it's an odd number of letters, This middle guy, so in this instance E, is that's always going to be true because it's just itself, right? So if it's even, then we would loop over an even number of times, right? So I think that would be the next step, is figure out how many times to loop. All right, cool. And then how are we going to, we're going to need to keep track of what value we're at on this reverse side. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is this dot length is going to be 7, but to get the last value here, it's actually going to be, the 6th indice, because strings and arrays start at 0, but length will give you the actual length starting at 1. So we could do so that'll be the next thing. So find out, so keep track of reverse order, and then we can do our for loop. I think after that we should be able to do our for loop. So for loop, and then within the for loop, we can just check if I don't know the right way to say this. So we just want to check if the pairs match. I guess we can just call them pairs. And so in this instance, we could just go through and we could check if the pairs match, keep going, and if it doesn't fail, return true. But in this case, all it's going to take is one pair not matching, and we can just get out of the entire function. So when you have an instance like this, when just like one little thing can blow up the function or return false, you usually want to check for that. You don't want to check for the things that are true. So if the pairs don't match, return false. And then if all the pairs do match, we'll be outside of the for loop. So if we get here, all pairs matched, return true. So I really like to do this. This took me a while to get used to. This is a great time, or the good way to practice this is like Code Wars, Leak Code, stuff like that. Don't worry about the one-line answers. Your code's going to be sloppy initially, but what you want to do is you want to get it working and then make it better. You don't need to make it the best right out of the gate. So I think we have enough here. Let's start creating our function. So get rid of the console here. All right, so we got a function is palindrome, and when you're asking for help, so like I'm doing this for myself, or I was initially, so I could easily just do, and I know what this is, right? But if you're when you get into the job, most jobs want you to write explicit variable names and function names, because you're going to be working on a big team. And if I come into this function and I didn't write it, I don't know what the heck's going on. It's not very clear. Whereas if you do is palindrome, that's pretty clear what this thing is doing or checking. And then also, if you're going to ask for help, it makes it a lot easier for me to get in here, read it, instead of having to ask you every single piece of detail about this function. So str is very common for string in the development world. Let's see here. All right, I could take a drink real quick. All right. Okay, so we get this palindrome. So, all right, so item number 1 done. All right, so now we got to figure out how many times to loop. All right, so if we have a odd number of letters, we only want to do. So I'm thinking half, right? Let's just do half. We'll loop over it half the way because that's where we want to stop. and then we don't need to check anymore. But in this case right here, will that work? And I think it should, because we'd go 3, and then we don't check this one. That one's just good. So if we did half of 7, that'll give us 3.5, and that should work. Okay, so let's just, so how many times to loop? And so here's kind of a, this is something I was thinking about, is we could do math.floor, and then we could do string.length and half. But I don't know if they would consider this a built-in method. And it's not really necessary, but I prefer not to have a value in my loop. But let's assume they said no, math.floor is a built-in JS method. This will still work, right? So how many times to loop? Perfect. And so like in this instance, this will give us 3.5. In this instance, it will give us 3. So we'll still meet our criteria. Now the next thing we need to do is, all right, so I think we have this one figured out. And then now we need to figure out, how do we keep track of the reverse order? So what I'm thinking is we take the length minus 1, and again, that's because the length will give us the value of 7, but the furthest indice is indice of 6. And when you get into JavaScript, that will become the most common thing. You will know that, and if it didn't make sense now, don't worry about it. You will learn it. So we can do, but we're gonna have to keep track, so it needs to be a let, because we're gonna have to reassign it each iteration through the loop, right? So let's we'll just do reverse order. We're gonna do string.length minus 1, and I think we're good with this, right? Bam. All right, so let's do our for loop. And I equals 0. Do I how many times to loop, and then we'll add 1, and the loop should be good. But let's think about this for a quick second here. So if this, I'm really, my big concern is for these half value cases. So if we did race car, how many times the loop is going to be 3.5? We really only want to do it 3 times, so will this work? So first one is is 0 less than 3.5? Yes, so loop. That's 1 loop. I is 1. Is 1 less than 3.5? Yes, that's 2 loops. And then I will be 2. Is 2 less than how many times? Is 2 less than 3.5? Yes, that's 3 loops. All right, now it's 3. Is 3 less than 3.5? Yes, that's 4 loops. Okay, so we've gone 1 loop too many. Okay. All right, so let's do. All right, so again, the simple solution to this is you just do math.floor right there, right? But again, I'm not sure if they would consider that a built-in method or not. So let's assume it's not, but that would solve this problem. So let's see. So we only want to loop over 3 times. So if we get 3, so we need it to be, in this instance, when it's an odd number, we need it to be the low value. So if it's 3.5, we need it to be 3. If it's 2.5, we need it to be 2. If it's 5.5, we need it to be 5. So, all right, let's just do this. We'll just do if string dot length modulo 2 equals 0. We'll do something else. So for those of you who don't know, this is the modulo. And what this does is it gives you the remainder of a division problem. So if we do 4 modulo 2, we get 0 because 4 is even, and that gives you a remainder of 0. But if we were to do 5, and we did modulo, we'll get back 1 because it's odd, and that will always return 1. So any even number will return 0, any odd number will return 1. Again, this is something you'll pick up as you learn JavaScript. If you don't know this, again, it's perfectly fine. This is just something you pick up over time. But this is really, really common to decide if something's odd or even. All right, cool. So if the string.length divided by 2 is 0, that means it's even. We want to do, and I'll actually do this. We'll do let how many times to loop. And we'll just won't set any value to it. And then here, how many times to loop equals string dot modulo 2, or not modulo. Oh. And so that's actually a really good example of in an interview, you want to talk through everything you're doing, because look what just happened there. I was going through and I did this. That's not right. But because I said it out loud, I caught myself and I was able to fix it. So interviewers love when you talk out the code because, one, let's say I would have done this, but I would have said it properly and I would have been like, okay, we'll take string.length divided by 2. Even though this is wrong, some interviewers, especially for like entry-level style interviews, they might look past that. I had the right idea. I just, had a syntax error, which you do all day long in your code. You'll get an error, you go back and fix it. But had I not talked out loud, I wouldn't have caught that, and who knows. So, all right, so if it's even, we just want whatever the half of it is. How many times to loop? We'll do string dot length divided by 2 minus 1, but we're going to do this to make sure this happens first, even though order of operations says it will. So what we're doing here is we're going to do string.length minus 2. So in the race car instance, this is going to give us 3.5. We really want, I guess we could just leave it 2.5, but I'd much rather it be 3. And let's see. Gosh, I don't even know if that's going to work. Let's test it real quick. Why is that? What's going on here? All right, so let's just do we'll do civic this time. All right. Oh, const A. This might not actually work. A might already be. Okay, cool. So A's already still there. All right, so let's do A dot length divided by 2 minus 0.5. All right, cool. That's giving us what we want. So that'll work. All right, so if this is 3.5 like it is in race car here, it'll give us 3, and then this will not run on the 4th iteration. Okay, cool. So so in the race car instance here, it's 7. So we're gonna end up having, how many times to loop will be 3. So the first loop, 0 is 0 less than 3. Yes, loop 1. This will be 1. On the second loop, I is 1 less than 3. Yes, that'll be the second loop. This will this will change to 2. Is 2 less than 3? Yes, that'll be the third loop. Then this will be 3. Is 3 less than 3? Nope. So it'll stop, and that's the amount of times we want to run on this. It's just the 3. So that should satisfy that. All right, so I think we got the for loop down. And then so we just want to check if the pairs don't match. So we'll do if statement, if pairs don't match, we'll return false. And then if they do match, we'll do true. So the way this works is, again, all it takes is one pair not to match for this function to return false. So we just check for that in case. What if this first set is wrong? We don't need to check the rest. We know it's not a palindrome. So that's why I'm checking that first. And now what will happen is, if that ever happens, it'll return false, which return false kicks it out of this whole loop, and that's just the end of the function. But if this is never met, that means we loop through all the things, they all matched, we'll run down here, and we'll return true. Okay, cool. So how do we check if the pairs don't match? Well, that's pretty easy. We have our indices starting at 0 here, so we can just do string 0. If that doesn't match, string reverse order. And I'm gonna clean that up a little bit. Actually, I want to put this guy. I'll put this guy right there, and then we'll do. Okay, cool. And then just one too many. All right, so okay, this works. The only problem here is we need to keep decrementing reverse order. So I think we can just do that here. So let's do reverse order minus minus. So what'll happen now is, if the pairs match, awesome, take one away from reverse order and then check again. And so the reason we're doing that is, this is index 0, this is index 6. This is index 1, this is index 5. So for the reverse order, we need to decrement, whereas the front, like the right way, or straight, or forward I should say, is handled by the for loop. So I think this should work. I actually think that might be it. Alright, well, let's see what kind of errors we get. Palindrome. False. Okay. So it's not working. Because this is a palindrome. So let's see. Alright. So this is when it gets fun. So let's see. Console.log. So let's do A. Let's see how many times to loop. We'll do B. It's going to be reverse order. Yeah, and let's see what those are. Okay, so how many times loop would be 2? So that's what we wanted. Reverse order is 4, which is what we want. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So those are correct. Alright, so maybe we did something in our loop here. So let's check this out. Let's do A. And just for what it's worth, you don't have to put a string here, but at work our code base is pretty big, so I like to do this just so I know it's my console log and not some other random console log that may be in there somewhere, which there shouldn't be, but you never know. My boss has a great saying whenever I ask him to pair is, trust no one's code, not even your own. So string reverse order. Alright, let's see what these guys are. Alright, so the first time through it's C, and the second time through it's C. Oh, I hope some of you guys caught this. But this goes show, I've been employed as a software engineer for 2 years, and I still made this mistake. That needs to be I, not 0. We weren't incrementing the forward path. So let's see if that fixes it. Okay, cool. So that is true. That's what if we do. We'll just add an E to make it false. Okay, so that's false. So there we have it. Again, this does not take into consideration um, palindromes with a space, because JavaScript, this is a space in memory somewhere, so that doesn't satisfy that. But again, I don't think that would be required because we can't use the built-in methods, but false, false, false. Cool. All right, so if that's all you cared about, thanks for watching. You can close the video, and I'll see you guys on the Discord, and we'll keep doing this stuff. If you want to see how I handle those other edge cases, if there's a space or if it's different cases, it's pretty quick. It'll probably take a couple minutes. So stay on, and I'm just gonna grab a drink super quick, and then we will do that. All right. So, all right. So we got all this. I'm gonna just get rid of the rest of this stuff right here. So, in real life, this could come in with spaces. This could come in with different case values. So like uppercase versus lowercase. These are really, really simple things to solve, which is nice because it's JavaScript. So if you didn't know, you could literally just do make a string all lowercase JS, and you're gonna find something. So, oh, cool. I prefer MDN. Use whatever you like, but oh, awesome. 2 lowercase. What does this do? Oh, wow. All we have to do is run this, and it will make everything lowercase. And if there's a lowercase, there's almost always an uppercase. So you can do either one. You can do lowercase or uppercase, and it'll just, all this is doing is making sure that the entire string is lowercase. And again, this is important because in JavaScript, cases are different values, right? So civic is not equal to civic with a capital C, even though in real life, most of us would consider these the same string, right? But JavaScript doesn't. Same with the spaces, right? Now for this one, we wouldn't really consider this the same thing, but in terms of a palindrome, it is. So, cool. All right, so first thing, let's just right out of the gate, we can do const, and we'll do lowercase string equals string dot to lowercase. Cool. So that should answer that. Now we just have to go in and change all this to lowercase string, and this will be lowercase. And actually, I'm not even going to change that yet because we still have to account for if there's no. We got to get rid of spaces. So again, I only know this because I've been using JavaScript for a long time. So if this didn't come to your head right out of the gate, don't worry, it will over time. It's just something that happens a lot. But what you can do is you can just do trimmed string. Trimmed is usually when you take the spaces out from either the front or the end, but I'm just going to call it that because we're trimming all the space out. So we can just do lowercase string dot split. So what this is going to do right here is this is going to take the string and split it into an array with spaces. And then we'll do dot join, and this is just going to take that array, it's going to join every value in that array right next to it with no spaces between it. So just for example, let's do word equals Boomer is trying to explain this and doing a poor job. Okay, cool. So we do word.split, and you'll see it just made an array with every word in its own index. So we now have no spaces in the array, but we need it to be a string. So I probably should have done word one. So we'll do word dot split. So now word one is going to be that array. Perfect. So we do word 2, which is going to be word 1 dot join, and then again this literally just joins it with no spaces that added in. So you'll see now we have this string that is this with no spaces. So again, if this didn't come to you right away, that's fine. This is just something you learn over time to do that. So all right, cool. So now we can change all these. This will be trimmed string. This will be trimmed string. This will be trimmed string. Trimmed string. Now the benefit of something like VS Code, it would highlight all these for you, and you would just do it at once because I'm bound to miss one of them. So trim string, blah blah blah. Okay, cool. So let's see. Put a space there. Okay, cool. We return true. So it looks like we're satisfying that. All right. So let's see if we're doing the case differences. Perfect, perfect. True, true, true. All right. Now I wonder if does it satisfy both? Perfect. Awesome. So then let's just let's add a couple more spaces, and let's E. So this should return false, and it does. Perfect. But this should also return, this right here should return true. Okay, cool. So that's a solution to that. That was my thought process. Again, this isn't the prettiest, it's not the only way, it's not the best way. I just wanted to share my thought process so that you guys could see, even at 2 years, like, you still start at the basics and you work your way up. And you guys saw I made a couple mistakes along the way. And you will your entire career, and it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I hope that was good for everybody. And if you guys have any other questions, just ask me on the Discord. Otherwise, I think that should do it. And thanks for watching. And I'll talk to you guys later.